Willie D Live.
What's up, family? If it's your first time checking out the show, let me know what city, what state you're coming in from. If you're outside of the U.S., let me know what country you're representing. Throw up your flag. Family, we got a special episode of the Willie D Live show. Uh, we have a young woman who has filed a $20 million lawsuit against Shannon Sharpe and his co-host, Chad Ochocinco, for defamatory statements that were made as a result of a video that went viral on August 2nd. I am going to bring her in right. Well, I'm trying to bring her in now, but I don't see. Here we go. Jimilita Tilman, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
I absolutely can. I can hear
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, so, well, look, hold on. Wait a minute. What's going on here? Okay. I've known Jimilita Tilman for several years. And she, I've always admired her dedication to the arts in her community. So I'm familiar with her background. I'm familiar with Chad Ochocinco and Shannon Sharpe's background also, but I don't know them personally. But I do, I've always thought that they were good guys, right? And, so I'm thinking to myself when I see this story, like, damn, what's going on here? And, I reached out to Jimilita to get us out of the story, and she had she provided some additional context that I wanted to share with my audience. Jimilita, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Could you walk us through the events of April 2nd, 2025, when you attended the Usher concert?
Yes, sir. So I was in London. I was there literally for 24 hours. My purpose for being in London was because, as you know, we run and own and operate the Harold Washington Cultural Center in Chicago, and we do a lot of Broadway musical theater, a lot of performative arts in the business of performative arts. And so I was in London to scout venues for a theater festival, and I went and saw a bunch of different venues to determine where we were going to be moving in the fall with our programming. And I saw that Usher was in town. I said, well, let me get a ticket. So when you have to buy tickets in that particular section, which is this area where you can sit down on the floor, you can't just buy, say, one ticket. You have to buy the whole table. I was by myself, so it made me have to buy literally the 4 tickets. I bought them, kept mine, put the other 3 back in the system, and then these other ladies bought them. So that's kind of where I was sitting when everything happened. There's an area, if people have ever seen his show, there's like a seating area with high boy tables. There's an area in the front that's a pit, and then there's this rear area that's kind of set up like a club or a bar. The security was like, hey, Mr. Raymond's going to be coming by. He's going to be walking by. He's not going to be stopping or speaking in this area. So just stay seated and enjoy the moment. That's what we were doing. I was just sitting there looking at it happen just like everybody else. And then he stopped in our area, which nobody was expecting him to do. He did a double back. He was going to serenade one young lady. She said, oh, no, you should serenade her. She's from Chicago. She's a newly retired homeschool mom. And then that's how the intimate moment happened.
How did you first become aware of the statements made by Shannon Sharpe and Chad Ochocinco regarding your marital status?
Well, absolutely. So we have these, I'm the number 1 homeschool mom in the country, or the top 10, it's arguably number 1 homeschool mom in the country. And I have a community of homeschool parents that I work with. I don't homeschool the children. I teach the parents how to homeschool their children. And It was an emergency meeting that was called around the matter about this whole ordeal. Just how do you deal with things publicly? How do you deal with things in the media? And then one of the husbands came on and was talking about the fact of he said, well, listen, you always talk about being a single mom and how you have to rely on your village and this and that, but you didn't tell us you had a husband. You didn't tell us that that your husband was leaving you, all these things. Now, I had heard this rumor prior to uh, this encounter with the parent on the line. And so I had actually did a whole lot of media around that this was false, all of that. I didn't even know that real news outlets were still trying to carry this as a matter of fact. And then I was like, well, I said, well, no, I've debunked that. I went on this show and that show, and this is not true. And they said, well, Shannon Sharpe just talked about it yesterday on Nightcap. And mind you, a lot of the parents that I work with, they are professionals in various entities. Some of them are entertainers. Some of them are professionals in corporate finance, fintech, in sports. And
Mhm.
so when they look at Shay Media, they look at that as a legitimate news source. And they took it like they wouldn't have said it if it wasn't true. They had a direct quote from your husband. And I'm like, there is no husband. There was no divorce. And it was, oh, we know there's no husband now because he divorced you. And I'm like, that's not the case. And so it was a major ordeal. It caused some tension amongst the men and the women in these wonderful families. The women are defending me. The men were going after me. They're like, well, why? What did they got to lie on her for? It was a mess, and that's how I heard about it initially.
Yeah, but what was your initial reaction? Like your honest initial reaction when you heard about these claims?
When I heard about the claim specifically initially from the Shay Media perspective, I was disheartened because I like his show, I like his series, I like how how I liked how he was transitioning from what he traditionally was doing, where you felt like you had an up close and personal factor with him. I was upset, and I said, okay, well, this needs to be right. We have to right this wrong. My first step was don't go into the comments. Don't try to fight this in social media. Reach out to them. And I reached out to them immediately. The show will happen on April 2nd. I reached out to them on the 13th, the 14th, the 15th, the 16th. They took it and made it private. They made it private on their page on about the 20th or the 21st, but they didn't take it down. And I said, hey, thank you for making it private, but I would like for you to take it down. I would like for you to recant this statement, and I would like for you to state the truth. And I'm willing to come on and talk about what really happened. They didn't do that. And so I said, okay, well, we're going to just have to deal with this in court. And that's where I filed in April 26th.
So that's what prompted the $20 million defamation lawsuit against Shannon and Chad. How did you come up with the number 20 million?
Well, that's something I'm not going to discuss publicly at this time. But just note that the case is based off of my emotional distress, my professional distress. It's also based off of the fact that there's a standard. The case in itself is based on a standard of journalistic integrity that everyone must follow that's calling themselves a media and a news outlet. There is the same level of journalistic integrity that must exist, say, on this podcast here, as it would if you were on a CNN or a traditional network or even a Fox. You have to vet the information that you have. If you're going to have a quote, where you get to cite your source. And all media companies, when they have segments as this, they normally have a show producer and a researcher that has to go and look up the information. And clearly, when they went and found the clip, at this point, they had already done about a week's work of media stating that this is not true and this is not the case. And they went ahead and ran with the story anyway. And even up until yesterday, it was up live, hour number 2, on the April 12th segment of their Apple Music podcast, as well as on iHeartMedia. Today, they took down the iHeartMedia hour number 2, but hour number 1 is still up from April 12th. And I believe that Apple took down, it doesn't say it's down, it just says temporarily unavailable. So it's not as if it doesn't exist because it had been monetized through advertisers and all of that. So at the end of the day, we have to look at this from a compounded perspective, because not only are these media companies that are not regulated, that are not held to a same standard, not only are they funded and fueled by major corporations and corporate entities, they also generate additional revenue from their likes, their clicks, their shares, and their engagement. And I believe that this time must stop, that people have got to return to true journalistic integrity, and they have to check and fact check and verify with the people that they're reporting on, or don't report the story.
What do you say to the people who say, well, if Shannon didn't have paper, you wouldn't have came after him? Because there's other people out there reporting on this story too. And a lot of people also reported those false allegations, but they're not being sued.
This is a lawsuit against a media company. He is the chairman and CEO of that media company. This is what the lawsuit is against. Ochocinco is named in the lawsuit as a party to the lawsuit. This is about a media company that did not do their proper due diligence. This is not Jimilita against a single solo individual person that does not have a standard to be held to from media. This gentleman is a journalist who has an entire production team. It is a multi-million-dollar media company that did not do their due diligence. And if it could happen to me, it can happen to someone who doesn't have the courage to stand up for themselves. Because right now, this is not a me versus him thing. This is me versus this multi-million-dollar media company.
Yeah, I get it that you can't say, how you came up with the $20 million number, but as a single mother and professional, what challenges did you face in managing the fallout from these allegations?
At this time, within the context and the scope of this particular interview, we're still in court about a number of things and a number of matters. Even though we have negotiations and discussions that we're discussing outside of court, we still have an ongoing court case. And so there's certain matters that will come out further as the case moves on. So I want to be mindful of things that I'm saying even on this interview here.
Yeah. I got you. And I appreciate you doing the interview, because I know that a lot of times, oftentimes when stuff like this happens, you're told by your PR people, hey, lay low, don't say nothing. We're going to speak for you. But, you were willing to come on and talk to me. So I appreciate that. In your lawsuit, you mentioned that your request for the removal of the defamatory content were ignored. Can you at least elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So it stayed up. And actually, even if you look at if you have access to the link now, like if there's a few ways to get access to the link. When you press it, it doesn't say content removed. It says this content has been made private. Even as of today, on across their platforms, it just says the content has been made private, which is not the same thing as removing it. And also, they never said, we got this one wrong. They never said, we're sorry for doing this. They never acknowledged the wrongdoing. And therein lies the issue. Because again, if they will do it, to me, and I'm actually in Chicago, I'm the chairman of Civil, which is the Chicago Independent Venue League. That's over 432 venues in Chicago that I am the chairman of. And in Chicago, our family also owns a theater in Chicago. So right now, Lollapalooza is going on. There's a number of things that I would have been doing leading up to that, but I've been dealing with this litigation matter leading up to all the different music festivals that traditionally take place in the summertime. I've had to field a lot of questions from sponsors and donors about the moral turpitude aspect of what's happening. This has a heavy level of torturous interference of economic expectations for them not to issue a statement, knowing that they have a following across their platforms totaling over 15 million people across all their platforms, unduplicated. They never recanted it. And some of the same people that sponsor and support their shows and follow their shows are some of the same people our small nonprofit looks to go after to support us. And right now, it just made it appear as though my integrity was called into question, and it's authentically their journalistic integrity, not mine.
So if Shannon and Chad had issued an apology, if they had recanted their statement, we probably wouldn't be here. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is if they would have done their due diligence in the first place, we wouldn't have been here.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm going to be specific. I'm saying if they did as a media company, valued at what they're valued at as a media company, they should have done their due diligence that any other media company would have been held to a standard of doing.
How do you feel about the role of social media in amplifying personal narratives especially when they're false?
I think that anyone who has news in their title of what they do, or anyone who has journalism in there, I think that they have to ensure that whatever it is that they produce and promote, that they're able to verify it. I think that they should be more conscious and aware of some of the libelous and slanderous things that they allow in their comment sections when they say and do things, because other people probably this here is taking a toll on not just me, my family. My daughter um is 19 now, right? And she had recently turned 19, and having to deal with the lie of me being married and my alleged husband leaving me. That's unnerving. So at the end of the day, them quoting a person that doesn't exist is outrageous. And it's sad because he actually had an opportunity as a leader in media right now, how media is taking its turn more toward social and global, and that whole piece of the way that people are collecting their content and information. He had an opportunity to do the right thing on behalf of his media company, and he didn't. And right now we are looking to right that wrong, and I am in talks and negotiation with their legal team to figure out next steps. I do believe that Shannon Sharpe, Chad Johnson have been pillars in their community with a lot of things that they have done, but this one they got wrong.
Yeah. And so, what message do you hope to convey with your legal actions?
That I think that with a law that will be introduced, that you'll be hearing about soon, because I am taking this before Congress, there needs to be journalistic integrity that crosses into the world of streaming, that crosses into social media platforms of news media and news media individuals, that they need to be able to do what they're supposed to do to cite their sources properly, or don't carry the story. What my hopes is that we will return to quality journalistic integrity, where you can trust that if someone has followed the letter of the law, that the story is authentic. But if they don't, that they have to pay the repercussions. There need to be protocols and triggers in place to protect the everyday person that cannot fight for themselves, that will not fight for themselves because they don't have the time or the opportunity to do so. But I'm taking the time and I'm taking this opportunity to speak up for those who could not.
Yeah. What type of impact has this made on any relationships that you have, business or personal, if
Well,
any?
I definitely want to say that it becomes a conversation that's unnecessary about having a husband, not having a husband, how you go, what's going on with the divorce, all of these things. I'm a sports enthusiast. I don't like how that plays in circles that I really enjoy entertainment wise, and it's very uncomfortable, and it is not. And again, this is more about the journalistic integrity that needs to be followed. Period. Point blank. They need to be uncomfortable with what they're going to say moving forward about me or anyone else. And that goes across the board. Anybody who has a camera, a mic, and a setup, they should not be allowed to just run with things without fact checking them.
Yeah. One last question before I let you go,
Thank
Jimilita.
you.
Uh, uh, what what do you want the public to understand about you and your intentions with this lawsuit?
I would like for the public to understand, and with my intentions, is that fair is fair, right is right, wrong is wrong. Me speaking up for myself and for other people that this may have happened to or might happen to in the future. I want people to think twice before they post adversely about people. I want people to think twice before they believe any and everything they see on these media platforms and outlets. And I even want to talk about the corporate entities that back these outlets. They need to hold these podcasters and streamers to a higher standard. There needs to be triggers in place to make sure that if this goes wrong or goes left, terminate them. Cut their money, cut their funding the same way that you would for anything else. I'm a Black woman that runs a nonprofit organization that is responsible for a lot of people when it comes to leadership within our community. I am the daughter of a civil rights legend and icon, and this will not be tolerated. And at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you should not be funded for propagating lies.
There it is. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first, right here on the Willie D Live show. Jimilita Tilman with her side of the story. And you know how we do around here, fam. I'll keep y'all updated on any breaking developments in this case. Until then, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. No more talk.